Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. We're back again, and it's the same three of us that's always here. I guess that doesn't sound super exciting, but I'm Illeagle 86, and I'm joined by the Nerdbomber.
Hey everybody! I know it's not as exciting without someone else on here. I guess we had that big guest star last week.
We're coming off a guest spot, and this week you're stuck with us. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention my good friend Techtic.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Good.
Are you ready for today? Maybe I should have asked you this before we started, but
yes, I am ready. Let's do this.
Wow. Okay, he's not just ready; he's excited. Well, that's good because we have a few things to talk about today. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Emmys, which happened this past weekend. We're going to be talking about State of Play, which actually happened today, the day that we're recording this, which is Tuesday. And, of course, we're also going to be talking about the fallout from this weekend's Area 51 event, this much-hyped event that turned out to be a little bit of a dud, but we'll get to that. So, yeah, let's dive right into it with some news here, and let's talk about the Emmys. So, I guess, first of all, did you guys watch? Because I did not watch myself.
I also did not watch.
I perused the interwebs to see who did well and who didn't, but no, I did not watch.
Award shows, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the Oscars when they're on too. And like, I typically try to watch the Oscars, but even those, I'm like the biggest movie fan, and it's just award shows are long, and like there's very little redeeming about the actual show. Like you can see these award shows now, like the Oscars did this last year, and this year the Emmys did the same thing, where there's no host. They're trying to like shake things up, keep things interesting, make things fresh, and I don't know. It seems like most of these award shows are just a lot of pomp and circumstance for a little payoff when you can just go on and like you said, just kind of see the interesting clips if there are any. Really, just read who the winners are. So yeah, I didn't watch either, but what we can talk about, of course, is kind of the list of big winners. Of course, you have Game of Thrones winning Outstanding Drama Series, and I believe Peter Dinklage won lead actor in a drama series.
Good for him. I think that was well deserved. I know everyone kind of hated on the last season, but overall, I think he was one of the strongest actors throughout the entire show. Showed a wide range of emotion. I know you haven't watched Game of Thrones, right?
I have not, but I mean, at this point, I may as well have.
Overall, I think he deserves it. I think he was probably one of the standouts to come out of Game of Thrones. I know there were a lot of actors that have since like basically launched a new career off of Game of Thrones, but I think he did a great job throughout the entire series.
Yeah, so actually, I think I was mistaken before. He actually won Best Supporting Actor in a Drama Series. And the surprising thing is that Game of Thrones not actually a huge winner here. I mean, it won Outstanding Drama Series, which is obviously the biggest award, and Peter Dinklage won, but I mean, it was passed over for writing, which a lot of people who have watched the last season would probably agree with that. I've heard a lot of complaints about the writing. Emilia Clarke was passed over for lead actress. Supporting actress in a drama series, there were 4 nominees from Game of Thrones, and they all lost to Julia Garner from Ozark. So in a sense, maybe if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you're a little disappointed, but
I think a lot of it was tarnished by that last season, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think people were particularly expecting it to win for Best Writing. Best Writing, by the way, Jesse Armstrong won for Succession, which is I believe it's another HBO show, which I have not watched. But yeah, I mean, Game of Thrones had a couple wins. The big winner on the night, which before we started recording, Techtic asked me what this show was, Fleabag. Which is actually a BBC show, actually co-produced with Amazon Studios, and it won quite a few awards. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I believe, won Best Actress in a Comedy Series. She won Best Writing for a Comedy Series. So yeah, that was probably the big winner of the night. Or one of the big winners, I should say. The Marvelous Miss Maisel is another one that... And you guys have watched that one, correct?
It is a fantastic show. I would say that show is definitely deserving of awards.
Yeah, it seems like that one also won quite a bit. I see supporting actor in a comedy series for Tony Shalhoub, who I do love Tony Shalhoub. Best supporting actress in a comedy series as well for Alex Borstein. So, yeah, that one got a couple of wins. But I mean, as far as Fleabag goes, best writing, looks like best directing. Lead actor, I mentioned.
I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm kind of scrolling through the list now. Black Mirror Bandersnatch also won Outstanding Television Movie, which that's kind of unique because it was an interactive movie. So it's kind of cool to see that one winning an award there. Having
seen Bandersnatch, so did you guys watch Bandersnatch?
No, it was one of those things where it got so hyped up, and I know you talked about it, and it was one of those things I just couldn't bring myself to actually watch or do myself.
Yeah, I watched Bandersnatch, and I'm not sure if a win was justified. Like, I liked Bandersnatch; it was certainly unique, but there are a pretty good. It seems like there are some really great nominees for Outstanding Television Movie. The Brexit movie with, which I believe was Benedict Cumberbatch. Deadwood came back for a movie. There's some movies that seem like they might have been better, but maybe Bandersnatch just managed to win simply because of how unique it was. I don't know. I mean, the choose your own adventure aspect of it was great, but as far as like the production, I didn't think it was anything really to write home about. I don't know. Outstanding Limited Series, Chernobyl managed to win for that, which I think is very well deserved. I watched Chernobyl all the way through. I actually binged it.
Question about Bandersnatch. Do you think the writing might have not been something to write home about simply because your choices stunk?
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, so I watched and rewatched Bandersnatch a few times, just trying to kind of go through all the possible choices that there were. And you can, there's like flow charts online that show you, like, if you make this choice, you'll go here. If you make this choice, you'll go here. Things like that. I think that the writing is hamstrung, not necessarily by the specific choices you make, but the fact that this choice mechanic has to be built into the story. Obviously a lot of stories and a lot of drama is about choice, right? But like the choices aren't typically so direct and so like just slammed right in front of you. Like it's usually more subtle than that. So like if you have to decide whether you're going to go left or go right, I just feel like that puts you in a bit of a box. And I wrote a review of Bandersnatch back when it came out, and I think I said something to that effect. Which, like, it's super fun, and you're obviously very engaged, but story-wise, I will say one result that I think directly comes from the whole, like you said, which choices you make, is that you can wind up with something that seems really disconnected and doesn't seem very cohesive. So, yeah, I think that's a fine point. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Bandersnatch... Congrats, Bandersnatch, on your TV Movie Award. I'm not so sure about that one. Ozark was another big winner, which I have never watched, but
I've heard really good things about it, but I haven't watched it either. But my mom, who usually doesn't like that type of show, she said that it was really, really good. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my throat today. Sorry, listeners. I'm like gravelly. Don't know what's happening.
My dad, actually, is really into, or at least at one point he was into Ozark, so maybe it's for that generation and not for us.
Yeah, so if you you haven't watched it, your parents probably are.
Talk to your parents.
Find out more.
Yeah, Jason Bateman won, actually, for directing for a drama series for Ozark, and as I mentioned before, supporting actress in a drama series went to Julia Garner. Not to be confused with Jennifer Garner, which is what I first thought when I read that, but no, it is a different person. Some other high points here. RuPaul's Drag Race won for Best Reality Show. As I mentioned, Chernobyl for Outstanding Limited Series. Writing for a Variety Series was Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which I think is a fantastic show. It also won an Outstanding Variety Talk Series. Chernobyl also, I believe, won for Best Writing for a Limited Series, which, again, I think is well-deserved. But yeah, I mean, as far to kind of move away from the actual awards themselves and to just reflect on this whole award show thing that we have going as a society. Like, I didn't hear a thing this year about, like, usually when there's a big award show, you hear about something that goes viral, or like some big, like when Ellen took that selfie that broke the internet, or like when was she the one that ordered pizza? Someone ordered pizza during the Oscars. Like, you always hear something like that happening. And with this Emmys, I didn't hear anything. Like you see those recap articles that are like, oh, what were the highs and lows? And like,
well, the main thing that I saw trending from this was what's the actress's name? The one from Fleabag. The main thing,
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yes, is her chilling back on like a deck chair with a cigarette and surrounded by all of her Emmys. That's like trending, where everyone's like, she's a boss. So that came out of it.
Yeah, but that's not even like something that happened during the Emmys. And maybe part of it was just, I think I was reading, it might have been IndieWire, but this was the lowest watched Emmys, I think, since they started keeping track of viewership back in like 1990 or something like that. So maybe it's just like, I don't know, maybe we're just all getting over it, especially when you think about the Emmys are targeted a lot towards more traditional television. And now that we're getting all of these streaming services, I mean, I know that a lot of those shows do end up getting nominated for Emmy Awards, as evidenced by like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but I feel like it's just a different dynamic and a different atmosphere for television in general, because things just aren't the way that they are traditionally released anymore. So I wonder if that's having an impact on the Emmys in general and just like how people are viewing it.
I mean, me personally, I relate the Emmys to like, you know, those books you had to read in like grade school that were like really generic, and you just looked up the Spark Notes.
Those are all really good books, I do have to say, for the most part. Now, as an adult, I've tried to make you go back and read some of them, and you actually like them. #Flowers for Algernon.
Yo, Flowers for Algernon was a dope book.
That's a good book. I'm talking about the generic books, the ones that like everyone kind of, there's nothing crazy about them, not the like critically acclaimed ones. Spark Notes. That's what the Emmys are. The Spark Notes is all I need.
Spark Notes, not a sponsor, but I will also say, while we're on the topic of Spark Notes, they have an amazing Twitter account. If you are on Twitter, go over and check out their Twitter account, because it's typically really hilarious. There's like a lot of great like Romeo and Juliet memes. There's a lot of Shakespeare content, but if you've ever read the more popular Shakespeare, you'll probably be able to get right on board with it. So yeah, the Emmys, they happened. I don't really know what else to say about it. Congrats to Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Congrats to Marvelous Miss Maisel. Congrats to Ozark, Game of Thrones. We'll see what wins big next year. As far as the weekend, I feel like we're going to talk for a little bit longer about State of Play. So I want to actually switch the order of the topics as I said them before, and talk about Area 51, because this was something that we talked about a few episodes ago. And well, it might have been longer than that ago. It was when this story first broke, when the Facebook thing went viral, and hotels were selling out of reservations and everything. That was this past weekend. That was this past Friday, I think, where the event was supposed to actually take place. And outside of, like a couple of funny videos of people Naruto running, I don't think very much actually happened. And I think it's a good time for us to kind of step back and evaluate both what our expectations were for it, and also evaluate how or why it didn't meet those expectations. So like, I mean, I don't know, like I didn't see much else besides that. I think I saw that one woman actually did try, she like went under a gate and like tried to get in but didn't get very far. Yeah,
I think I saw the video. She was like an older woman, and she walked basically storming very loosely Area 51. Right. She just like slowly walked into Area 51. Overall, it was just like a couple dozens of people who showed up. It seemed like it was more of like a quiet, not super rowdy, quote unquote, storming. And I mean, even in the videos, you can see that the guards and stuff outside of Area 51, like they all kind of had little smirks on their faces. Nothing really happened. I think the bigger news was really, oh man, I don't remember. It was like just outside, I think, of the town that Area 51 is located. There was like the Area 51 Fest or whatever, and it basically turned into a music festival, not even near
Alien Stack.
Alien Stack. So you guys did call that. I will have to say, give you guys props on that. And I mean, it just made more sense. Honestly, while it seemed like a fun time, maybe, I don't even think that sounds like a fun time to storm a government base. Like, realistically, if you did that, you would get shot down so fast, no matter how fast you Naruto. Thank you. Ran. I mean, it did make for a really interesting clip, though. Could you imagine, like, that guy who turned into a meme? Like, you're forever known as the Area 51 Naruto. Why can't I say it? Naruto runner. Thank you.
One thing I will say that I am very pleased about is the guards basically had every right to be jerks to these people, but they were just good sports about it, and that's kind of what I like to see. Well, yeah, let's just smile. These guys are going to be idiots. It's only going to be a day, and they took it in stride. And kudos to them. Thanks for not really kind of egging things on. So I think you guys handled that well.
And when I read a report, I want to say it was at some point last week, like as it was getting ready to start, like someone was like, yeah, people at the base are like actually a little concerned about it. And like it was soon revealed that like there was absolutely no cause for concern. Even there was like 1% of the people there who like quote unquote said they were going to be there on Facebook or whatever. And like, you know, we heard these things that when we first talked about this, we're like, oh, hotels are getting all booked up. There's like 2 hotels near Area 51 and they're both super dinky. So like, you know, a couple dozen people would probably book them solid. And, you know, what we got was, you know, a couple dozen people having what seemed like a really good time, like you said, like alien stock and everything, but there was never any actual storming going on. I mean, even people who booked tickets to this thing and like flew down there, I'm sure they had some point in the last couple of months to kind of sit back and think like, man, even if I wanted to get into Area 51, there's no way I'd be able to do it. So
I will say, I know Techtic was very excited, though, because at one point in one of the videos that I was watching, they were yelling, like, clap them alien cheeks.
Clap alien cheeks.
And that's been, like, Techtic's phrase of the month for whatever reason. So,
whenever I play video games, I am clapping cheeks. Let me tell you that right now.
So, yeah, he was super pumped to see videos of them chanting that.
Do I not understand what clapping cheeks means?
Well, let me tell you a little story.
I feel like I don't.
When I would play it, I would say that. And everyone would go, no one says that, stop saying that. And then this video came out. I can't tell you how validated I was. First off, people say that. Second off, people say that with regards to clapping alien cheeks. So boom. Now, what it means is basically a sexual statement saying...
Okay, so we're getting into it. Okay, yeah. Keep going.
I mean, just use your imagination.
Person. Boom.
Yeah, just use your imagination on that one.
I don't know if I should draw you a picture at some point.
You know what? Maybe we'll put that on our... No, I don't want to promise to put that anywhere.
You can use Urban Dictionary to find a really good definition of it if you are interested.
But, how does one clap cheeks?
Clapping alien cheeks.
You take your hands and you put them together... And then you separate them, and then you put them together.
That's clapping hands, not cheeks.
Yeah, I don't know. Just being a jerk.
I mean, we don't even know that aliens have cheeks to clap. You ever think about that?
Mind blown.
I mean, they have, like, face cheeks, I'm pretty sure. Like, you can at least clap some kind of cheek.
How do we know? I mean, an alien... We don't know what's in Area 51, first of all. I mean, do you guys think there's aliens in Area 51? Let's get that out of the way.
No, they moved them to Area 52. Duh.
There's no Area 52.
Exactly.
I do think it would be interesting, and maybe we do this on like a bonus segment sometime for our Patreon subscribers, but like, I don't know how I feel about aliens in general. So I don't know what's in Area 51.
We should also go through where areas 1 through 50 are.
I feel like the government would come shut us down if we disclosed all of the locations of all of the different areas.
Is there an Area 1 somewhere?
I'm convinced the government did the old high school prank with 4 pigs, where you label them 1, 2, and 4. That's why we never really know.
they figured people would be looking for areas 1 through 50, and then they were like, we'll deal with Area 51 once we find the other 50. I mean, I will say, I think there's aliens there. Like, I just listened to, I'm sorry, I watched a YouTube video. Shout out to BuzzFeed Unsolved. They did a whole, I don't want to say expose because that's a ridiculous word, but they did an expose on like Area 51, again, in honor of this thing that happened this past weekend about like, you know, what is it? What exactly do we think is there? And like, there's this guy, I can't think of his name right now, but there's a guy who like came forward and was like, here's all the stuff they have there. And like gives a very compelling and convincing account of like, yeah, I saw aliens one time. We've been working with alien craft that like have antimatter engines and, you know, it's gravity-based propulsion, things like that. And like, if stuff like that is in there, we're never getting in there. Like, I hope there was no one who was seriously at any point like, we're going to storm Area 51. Like, I like to think, especially after this weekend, that people thought better of it. But like, maybe, I don't know, maybe there was one guy who was there who was like, all right, when are we going to do it? And everyone's like, we're not doing it, dude. Like, we're not going to actually do it.
Well, there's always that over-the-top friend. They're always...
Well, right. And I wonder what the cross-section was of these people. Because, like, yeah, I saw these clips and these signs of, like, clapping alien cheeks and everything. But, like, I do think there were probably, like, at least 4 or 5 people there who were like, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. And then everyone's like, we're not doing it. And they were probably really upset. So, like, shout out to those people. Probably had a pretty rough weekend. But do you think we'll do it again next year is my question. Because, like, alien stock can't have been that successful. There weren't many people around. Like, was it profitable?
I mean, I think alien stock probably will happen again just because festivals, quote-unquote festivals and stuff like that usually get a couple years. And especially after people saw that, like, you know, there were a decent amount of people who actually showed up. I'm sure next year then it'll be like even bigger and better and they'll learn from this year and it'll just be kind of like an ongoing gag thing, I think. But organizing a festival like that, like, I mean, you've seen the Fire Festival and all that kind of stuff. That's not easy.
Oh, man.
So I could also easily see it turning into something that just like is a total cluster and dissipates.
We're rambling a little bit now, but did you guys watch the Fire Festival documentary?
Still have not done that.
How messed, like, you have to watch that. It is honestly fascinating. Like, that was a situation where I walked in and my girlfriend was watching it and I was like, what is this? And she was like, it's about what happened at Fire Festival. I was like, I don't care. And then like 10 minutes later, I was like really hooked in and like, it's honestly fascinating what happened with that. And like, God forbid anything similar ever happens because it was like, it was horrible for a lot of people. And then this douche, like, kind of got away scot-free with the whole thing. It's fascinating. Alien stock, I'm sure, is put on by very reputable people who don't do the things that this guy did. But,
and who know how to make a good Facebook event.
Yeah, clearly. Although, do we know, was that the same guy who was like, I'm going to make alien stock now? I feel like the original guy was, for all we know, it was like a 12-year-old kid who was like, this would be funny.
I don't remember. I want to say it was the guy who originally made this Storm Area 51 event was the one who like said, okay, guys, let's not actually do this. Let's move this and do like a little party thing instead. But I might be wrong.
Yeah, see, that's crazy to me. Like, that it was the same guy. If I was that guy, like, imagine making this event and it blows up. I'd be scared. I'd be like, what have I created here? Because, like, to me, it seems like the kind of thing that you would just make as a joke and then move on. And then you tried to move on, but, like, you know, however many people were like, let's actually do this now.
Well, I feel like with all the media attention it got too, like, you can't move on from that. Now you're committed. Like, if all of the major news outlets are covering your hoax event, like, now you just got to double down. Otherwise, you just look like a pansy. I don't know.
Right. I mean, for all we know, this guy didn't want any of this. And yet, it happened. So, yeah. Area 51. If you went to Area 51 this past weekend, first of all, I would be shocked if you both went there and listened to our podcast, because that would be a very small subsection of humanity. But if you did, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram, wherever you want. tell us about your experience. I'd be really curious to hear how it was. And who knows? Maybe we'll go next year if it happens next year. What do you say, Techtic?
No, probably not.
No, you're gonna pass. All right,
not a big desert person.
I honestly don't like. I'm at a point. Well, I guess I was in New Mexico for a while, but like, I've never been in like an actual desert. You know, I don't think I'd do well there either. It's too dry,
too hot. So this is a little bit of a tangent, but this weekend where we live, the temperatures skyrocketed back up into like the mid 80s after we've been in like high 60s for a while. And it was a very tough adjustment, and I could not handle that. So I don't know how I could do in like 100-degree desert weather. I think I would just wilt.
Right. Well, you wouldn't. I mean, doesn't wilting require like moisture of some kind? I think you just like shrivel up because it's so dry.
That's fair.
Like sometimes when the weather changes, I like get nosebleeds at night because of how dry the air it gets. Like, imagine in the desert, my nose would just be bleeding all the time. Gosh, food for thought, I guess. So yeah, Area 51 happened. We're talking about things that happened, and we're going to keep talking about things that happened because we're going to be talking about State of Play and all the fun that happened there. But first, we do want to take a second to shout out our wonderful Patreon supporters, and specifically our Patreon producer, Mr. Ben Checkness. So if you listened to last week's episode, Ben was on with us. He had a great time, or at least I like to think he did. And we had a great time talking to him. So if you want that to be you, and also if you want to get a shout out on every episode like he does and give input for our game every week, then you can support us on Patreon by heading over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast. And yeah, we have 3 levels of support. Ben is super cool, and he supports us at the topmost of the 3 levels, which is the night level. And by doing that, he gets, again, a shout out every episode, access to our monthly secret segment and our monthly vlog. And since he has been supporting us for 3 months, 6 months, which one is it?
Just over 3 months.
Just over 3 months. He got a guest spot on the show. So if you want to sit down and have a conversation with us, then that is your chance to do so. If you would still like to support us, but at a lesser level, that's okay too. And we have Squire level of support, which gives you access to the monthly secret segment and the monthly vlog. And then our lowest level, which is the page level, gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So if you're interested, we'd love to have your support. We love doing what we do, and any support really helps us do it. So head on over again to patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast.
And if you are in either the Square or Night tier right now, there's a 2-week early access window going on for Techtic's special feature that he threw up on YouTube, where he opens the Elite Trainer box for the Unbroken Bonds Pokemon Trading Card Game expansion. So that is up there.
Get to see my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
So guys, there's never been a better time to get on board with us. So yeah, go check that out. And we're also going to take a quick second here to shout out some of our friends.
Hey, I heard you like movies.
I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. And we talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We may talk about video games, music. Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
what else?
Podbean,
what else?
Podcast Addict,
goddamn,
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, Fucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We
Ah.
gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair to say
Ah. Ah.
all
Yeah.
that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
Ah, I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we're going to end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
All right, we're back. So yeah, we do want to talk a little bit now about State of Play, which happened today. And when we talked about E3, which was, man, time flies. I guess it was a couple of months ago now. It seemed like Sony and PlayStation, like there was a lot being withheld in anticipation of State of Play, which was today. So, a lot of very exciting things.
They didn't do like an official kind of conference. They opted to do a State of Play, which is more like Nintendo Direct. So we've been getting like snippets, these like 20 to 30 minute long videos showing information throughout the year instead of one big thing at E3. Which
Right.
I have to ask you guys, how do you feel about that? Like now that we're starting to get these trickling in every now and then, how do you feel about that over the one big presentation?
I think we go one big presentation. I don't see why. I don't know. Like I suppose I can see the merit of having a steady trickle throughout the year, but I just think E3 is the coolest thing ever. Like whenever I see it, I imagine being there and how amazing it would be. And
I like the old Band-Aid approach too. Just ripped it off, good to go. You know what's coming.
Right. It gives something. It gives everyone something to anticipate, and it's like this. It's this big event. I don't know. Like I feel like not participating in it to the extent that, like, the people at E3 this year did. Like I feel like it takes away from it. And I understand why Sony does it the way they're doing it. But come on, Sony. Wasn't this the first year too that they did things this way?
Yeah, this was the first year. But I mean, without this kind of setup, you wouldn't get surprise announcements like that of LA Noir's VR version coming to PlayStation VR today. Like literally they got to announce it, show it off. I mean, it's been released for PC VR systems, but they basically got to show it off and then say, hey, you can go download that right now.
I suppose that's pretty cool. I mean, yeah, like I certainly like the idea of the game itself, first of all. LA Noire, I've never played, but it seems like a super cool game. And on VR, I can just imagine how cool it would be. I haven't watched any of the promos or anything, but
it feels like a good game for it because you get to like interrogate people, and there's some action, there's some gunplay in LA Noire. You actually bought me the game back for like I think it was the Xbox 360.
Yeah, that was way back.
But like I think it's a really good setup for VR because you're basically being a detective, and I feel like that format works best when you're immersed in it. And so I think VR would be really cool.
Me personally, any kind of game that involves interrogation and a lot of person interaction, if you immerse that into VR, I'm all about it. Because there's two types of people that there are in VR. There's the person that takes the story very seriously and sticks to the script. And then there's the person that does weird things like caress the other character's face or tweak their nipples. I'm not going to say which one of those I am, but I enjoy VR games and interacting with other, or pretending to interact with other people in the game.
I will say to that point that when it comes to non-VR games, I'm a huge story guy. You guys know this about me, but I think that there's just something about VR as an institution that, I mean, I'm not tweaking nipples, but like,
I didn't say I was tweaking nipples.
I'm goofing around more. Like, I feel like VR like implores you to goof around more. Like, oh, you're in this environment, like you're not in the real world anymore. Do something ridiculous.
Well, it's even like doing something super mundane feels a lot more fun in VR. So like, for example, in London Heist, which was on the PSVR Worlds disc back when like PSVR first came out, and I think it was a predecessor to Blood and Truth. One of the things, you're like sitting in this room with mafia guys, and they give you a cigar, and you can light the cigar, and then the headset actually listens to you taking a breath, so that when you breathe in and breathe out, like you actually breathe out smoke in the game. And for whatever reason, like I played around with that for a good like 15 minutes, and it was the most mundane thing, but it was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever.
It's super, super cool. And like, and that adds to the immersion. You know, like I think that's amazing. Like, I wish I didn't put on a VR headset and immediately want to goof around. That's just who I am. But like, I have to imagine that if I was like looking for clues, like the VR games that are shooters, I feel like especially inspire goofing around. But if I'm like in a room and I have to like find out who killed somebody, like I like to think I'd take it a little more seriously. I don't know. Maybe that's just wishful thinking. But LA Noire VR seems pretty cool. The thing I was excited about that was announced today was the release date for Last of Us 2. And for those that don't know, The Last of Us is probably my favorite game of all time. I don't think that's a stretch. And we got a slick new release date trailer that shows some more stuff. I maintain my theories about where the story is going, and I actually think there's a very predictable trajectory that the story is on. But nonetheless, it looks like it's just going to be incredibly cool, incredibly emotional, just like the last game was. And I couldn't be more excited. And that drops February 21st, 2020. So for me, that was like, you know, looking at state of play, that was the highlight for me.
The trailer was super intense. And so I haven't played the first game yet. I have it on my backlog.
The game is super intense, and it's scary, and it's like, it's hard. Like there's parts of that trailer that I'm like, oh man, that's going to be so hard. Like that's like the first thing I think when I see you playing certain sections, because I do remember the first game, there were certain sections where I was like, man, I've played this section like 10 times and I still can't figure it out. I think it hits a really great balance in that regard. But yeah, it's super, super intense for sure.
I think it's interesting to see how, because like I said, I don't know the characters all that well, just from like what I've seen in Let's Plays and what I've heard you and other people talk about. But it seems like it's going from like a loving relationship thing to like a more revenge tone type game. Because I believe the first game was more about just like the almost father-daughter like relationship between the two main characters. And now this seems like Ellie is out for blood.
Yeah, so actually Neil Druckmann, who wrote the story for The Last of Us, and is also he's a Naughty Dog guy, so he's also been in Uncharted 4 as well. He actually has said in some interview at some point that the first game is about love and the second game is about hate. So
I think the trailer does a really good job communicating that.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, I do have to say what my theory is, because I think it's a fairly widely held theory, and it doesn't involve any spoilers for the first game at all. But I think Joel. So you're playing as Ellie for pretty much the whole game in this case, whereas in the first game you're mostly playing as Joel. I'm pretty sure Joel is dead. Like, I think any interaction you're seeing between Ellie and Joel has been dead for a while, and he's kind of like the the little guy on your shoulder, so to speak, where
like
he's
the
like
guiding spirit.
Yeah, like a figment of her imagination, a way of her dealing with that trauma or something like that. If you watch the trailers back that we've seen, I think a lot of things point directly to that. And the first trailer frames it as she's getting revenge for his death. And this trailer obviously says, no, she's getting revenge for someone else's death. But yeah, revenge is clearly a theme. And I think she's probably harboring some sort of, again, it's some kind of father-daughter connection with Joel. And I think he's gone, between games, and she's struggling with that. But either way, super excited. Could not be more excited, in fact, for this game. But there were also some other cool games that were teased. We got a Modern Warfare story trailer, which, gosh, I mean, it looks gorgeous. I know that much. Call of Duty is Call of Duty at this point, so I feel like if you're in, you're in. But
I'm sort of torn. Every year, I somehow acquire the latest Call of Duty. Like, I actively bought the World War one, and then somehow I think we got Black Ops 4 when we bought a second PlayStation. And I don't know, like, they're fun. I really like the concept of going back to Modern Warfare. That was probably my favorite installment or like miniseries within Call of Duty.
Yeah, same.
But I don't know. I'm just afraid of what they're going to do to it and the combat in general. And like,
I wouldn't be afraid. I think you know exactly what you're going to get at this point. So I mean, I don't know. I've been out for a while, but go on.
Me personally, they've put all of their eggs in the online gameplay basket, in my opinion. The story is just kind of same stuff, different day.
I don't know. The stories in Call of Duty have actually been pretty good. I would say that in, oh man, what was the one where they were in space and it had Kit Harington? I can't even remember because it was so...
Would have had to have been Advanced Warfare, but I didn't play it.
But like that story was pretty good.
So anyway, with regards to the online multiplayer side of it, I used to love playing it back when I was younger and had more time to master the art, we'll call it, of being competitive in this game. But my goodness, the people, when I'm getting mopped all around by 5 to 12-year-olds because they've just have the time to sink into this game and get really, really good.
Right.
It's just not fun for me anymore.
It's a cycle of life, I think. As far as the stories go, I loved Modern Warfare, and Modern Warfare 2 specifically had phenomenal stories, I thought. Black Ops 1 was okay, and I saw Black Ops 1 as an off-ramp because I was like, this is going to start getting worse, and I left at that point. I played them primarily for the stories, and I think Techtic, we're a minority there. I worry that it's shifting towards this goofy battle royale that every other game is doing. And that's not what Call of Duty is to me. It's not what it's ever been. And I think Call of Duty has been great. So I hope they don't head there. But yeah, story-wise at this point, I feel like you know what you're getting. And for me, that's just not enough to shell out the money for it. But I think it has a huge dedicated fan base, and it's probably going to sell like 1 billion copies. Civilization 6, I have never played a Civilization game, but people go crazy for these games. I believe it's a real-time strategy game, correct? Yes.
Yeah, it is. That's kind of honestly the reason why I haven't gotten into it, because it just feels like so much work, and I understand why people love it, but oh my goodness, it's just so overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. And on a console too, I'm not sure. Like, I had an older brother. I still have an older brother. He's still with us. He was super into Age of Empires is another one that I think is very similar. But like when I think of real-time strategy, I think of PC. Like I do not think of a PS4. So that's an interesting jump. I don't really know how many RTSs there are on PS4, if any. I'm sure there are some, but I would think they're more scarce. But yeah, people love Civilization. It's certainly not for me, but that was another one of the bigger reveals today, I would say. And then we have a few other games here that I can shout out, but I don't know much about. Humanity would be one. I don't know how to pronounce this next one. Wadham? Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe so.
Two shapes wearing top hats. Looks super fun. Medieval, but spelled interestingly. That one looks fun. It looks like it could be a potential platformer of sorts.
Yeah, that one was actually I think it was a PS1 game that I believe they're remastering, and they announced that there's going to be a demo for people to try out.
Right on. And then this game After Party, which looks quite visually interesting, but I don't know really anything about it. If you saw something at State of Play that we did not talk about, or that you think looks especially cool and want to talk about with us, then again, head on over to Twitter. We're on there, guys. I don't tweet very much unless tweeted at, but I am there.
I will twat at you. One of the things that they didn't discuss at State of Play that you
were expecting something.
Yeah, I was expecting something so much, and I thought for sure it was going to come today. But WB Games Montreal had some cryptic tweets. So yesterday, so we're recording this on Tuesday, so yesterday was the 80th anniversary of Batman's first appearance. And so WB Games Montreal, for the first time in a really long time, were back and active on Twitter, and they were the developers between Arkham Origins and I think Arkham VR. And
sure. So
their tweet had a GIF, and there was some like subliminal kind of like symbols flickering in and out. And it seemed to me that they were hinting at a Batman game surrounding the Court of Owls. and I'm super excited. And there was follow-up too from WB's main account and everything, and it seems like there's going to be a Batman Arkham game on the horizon surrounding the Court of Owls. And if you guys are not familiar, it was probably one of my favorite things to come out of the whole New 52 DC storylines.
They're creepy.
Yeah, it's like an underground organization. The Court of Owls have basically always run Gotham. They're like a bunch of elite people who basically are the mechanism behind everything that goes on in Gotham. And so Batman discovers them pretty much. And so Batman goes at odds with the Court of Owls, and it's just a really fun, creepy, just original storyline. And so I'm super pumped. I'm super excited. I thought the game was going to be announced in full, but we saw nothing at State of Play. But I think something is definitely on the horizon. I'm hoping maybe at the Game Awards later this year, we'll see something more on the game.
I mean, I would love another Arkham. Like, Arkham City is easy top 5 for me, game-wise. Arkham Knight is also up there. I mean, all the Arkham games are phenomenal. Anything of that nature would be outstanding. I would be all for it.
So there was also some speculation online. I was on like Reddit and stuff earlier today, and people were speculating that they might be implementing the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Yeah. Okay. So
can't say I'm familiar with that system, but
it's basically like an almost alive quote unquote system where enemies basically rise and fall from power, and then you basically have different nemesis that you defeat and that continually come back. So based on like who you're defeating in the story, your nemesis could be different than like if I had one playthrough, you might have different enemies that are powerful in your game based on like how you play the game. So it would be very interesting, especially knowing that it would be a game potentially based around this Illuminati-like society. I think that would be really cool.
I think the Batman universe in general would be a really cool place for that kind of system. I mean, Batman has a pretty amazing like stash of villains, so to see them, like you said, kind of continually rise and fall from power in a way that feels alive would be super, super cool. Let alone a Court of Owls, which does sound creepy and does sound very interesting. I would be all for this. So yeah, hopefully they release something soon, even if it's just another cryptic GIF in a tweet.
The last bit of news before we move on, I always like to give Xbox parody. I know we spent a lot of time talking about PlayStation in this podcast, and I know we got some feedback on one of our YouTube versions of the podcast a while back that they wanted to hear more talk about Xbox. So there was also an Inside Xbox episode today. There was some more sneak peeks at some of the games coming up for Xbox, but one of the major news pieces that I just wanted to quickly touch on is that xCloud is going to have their first kind of like test run, and that preview program will be starting off in October. It's a very limited run, but some people will be able to test out the service, and hopefully that means that it's quickly on the horizon.
This is the cloud-based gaming thing that we've been hearing about for however long?
Yep, that's the one.
Wowie. Well,
it seems incredible that it's like finally coming to fruition. And I know like with Google Stadia and stuff, they need to get moving on it anyway because Google Stadia is also on the horizon. But I feel like we've just been hearing about this for so long. So seeing something tangible happening with it is pretty cool.
I honestly thought Google Stadia would just go, meh, not worth it, and then just cut it, which they've done with projects before. Google is notorious for starting things and then cutting on the funding.
I mean, they seem
did that, right?
Yeah, they seem pretty committed to it though, and I think that's why Xbox wanted to get moving with Project xCloud.
They know how much money is in it. Would be why. There's far more money in that than there is in a pair of glasses. I would imagine.
Very true.
But I don't know. 5 years from now, you think we're cloud gaming? I'm still not sure. The jury's out for me.
I don't think that would be anyone's primary way to play, but I could see, like, if I'm playing a game on my console and I travel or something and I have my laptop on me, then maybe I'll be able to stream. If the internet connection is good enough where playing on a streaming platform isn't super laggy and annoying. I mean, I could see if I was bored and, like, on vacation and the weather was crappy and you have nothing else to do, like, why not? Or playing on your phone if you're waiting an hour at the DMV or something like that.
Okay, so you think selective use cases, for me at most I see a subset of the gaming community availing themselves of this new feature, but I agree, I don't think it's ever going to be something that becomes mainstream. Techtic, any further thoughts?
Just basically, I thought that they weren't really going to have much competition. That's why I made the statement about Google, but
yeah.
Kind of a niche thing for me. When I game, I like to surround myself in my home with some snacks and then just go.
Couch.
I'm not a big on the go gamer. And I guess the real benefit to cloud gaming is storage capability, right?
Right.
I get external hard drives on external hard drives for my Xbox, so it's not a big showstopper for me.
Well, and the way I see it, like, I mean, if you have discs, you can just delete games when you're done with them. Like, my PlayStation has 500 gigs on it, and I just cycle through stuff. It's not a huge deal. I don't need to have 10 games installed at once. But
you don't have more than 10 games installed at once?
I would have to count, but I certainly don't think so.
Oh my goodness. I think on our Xbox alone, we have like 50 games installed at any one time.
Wow. Okay. So maybe I'm a minority here. But
it's like, you never know. So granted, there's two people using our console, and you never know, like, there's the pick 'em up games where you don't want to play super long. So like your Rocket Leagues and your sports games where it's not like your main game.
And then there's party games like your Jackboxes and
then we've got like our individual story games that we're pursuing. If there's like a couch co-op game that we're going to play together. So we have like, I want to say at least 50 at any one time installed.
See, for me, it's the opposite of that. Like, I don't party game much. I don't do a whole lot of online play. Like, for me, it's typically story games where I get super invested and immersed in one game for an extended period of time. So for me, cycling makes a lot more sense than it does for you. But my girlfriend and I are dabbling more now in couch co-op, so maybe that will change. But I think even if it does, like Techtic said, I'd probably go in for an external hard drive and leave it at that, at least for the time being. Which kind of brings me into a semi-gentle segue for what are you up to Wednesday, which is I don't have much to discuss there, but my girlfriend has been playing Knack, and she just downloaded Knack 2, which has a co-op functionality. So I think that's where I'm headed.
Well, that's exciting.
Seems like a super cool platformer, which she's been, since finishing Ratchet and Clank, she's kind of been seeking that kind of game out. So kind of excited to get back into the couch co-op world with her. And other than that, honestly, not a whole lot to report. So I'll just turn it over to Techtic.
I am very excited for what we have been up to this Wednesday.
Well, please take it away.
For the past couple of weeks, we've been saying, we'll get to it. Well, folks, we have got to it. We have started playing Gears, and we're doing the whole story co-op style. And if you haven't started playing it, I'm going to be very light on the spoils, but there will be some spoilers. So,
I would say it's going to be vague. I think we'll keep it super vague, but it's more like spoiling a set piece. So if you're bothered by like surprise set pieces, then maybe skip ahead for like a few minutes.
Everyone's already turned the podcast off by now.
So
they heard him say spoilers and just backed out immediately.
All of the Gears are notorious for being action-packed, but to me it's kind of face value action-packed. This one is action-packed and also has a very dark, almost horror feel to it. And it's got this psychological as well as action-packedness to it that really keeps you immersed. And then on top of that, with all the goodies and things that you pick up, I've got Nerdbomber reading all the dialogue because she reads it to me because I don't have my glasses on when I play. But my goodness.
How old are you? Just really quick.
Just leave me alone. I left them in my car and I've been too lazy to bring them in the house. And my goodness, it's crazy how sucked in and like on edge you are as you're turning corners and things like that in this story.
Yeah, so one of the things that I think Gears 5 has done really well that you haven't really seen in any of the previous installments is that instead of just being this super action-packed, you're going from one scene to another. Like you do have major battles, but then they're all kind of broken up by these periods of quietness where it's still a linear game, but the set pieces, which are gorgeous, like the graphics are incredible, but the set pieces, you're walking through like tunnels or buildings or exploring, and it's not like a super big open world, but there's enough rooms to explore and things to pick up that it just feels like when you need a break, you get a break. And it also like helps to set the atmosphere and put the story in perspective. I think this is probably, in terms of writing, one of the best Gears that I've ever played. I mean, Gears has always had a really good backstory, but a lot of the story you end up getting either from novels or extra outside game information. Whereas Gears 5 so far, they've done a really good job. Even if this is your first Gears coming in, I think that they've done a really good job bringing you up to speed, being very accessible. The story is really interesting and gets you super involved. I mean, the gunplay is good as always. I mean, Gears has always been really fun from that third-person cover shooter perspective, but there's just something about this game, like Techtic was saying, there's points where you're walking through this really dark lab, and stuff just pops out at you. It's just a creepy atmosphere, like you can be walking for a good 5 minutes and nothing is happening, but you just feel on edge. There's a lot of different collectibles to find that really flesh out the story. I would say probably one of my favorite scenes so far. Like, there's just stuff that surprises me. We're not even probably, I think we're about maybe halfway through the game at this point. But I would say at the end of Act 1, and I don't want to give any spoilers away, and Techtic, I don't know if you feel the same way, but at the end of Act 1, even throughout Act 1, there were a few scenes where I just stopped and I was like, wow, that was really heavy and just super impactful. And
what you're describing... Sorry, what you're describing in a lot of ways sounds like Dead Space to me.
Yes and no.
Let me tell you the main thing that kind of covers everything is in Gears 4, they had JD, which is Marcus's son. And he was kind of this arrogant guy, but overall, perfect soldier, I guess. In this one, they're systematically going through every character and identifying their flaws, and to me that makes them more human. So They're showing that JD makes mistakes that are messed up, is what I'll say. And then they're showing the girl Kate has other flaws, not going to say. And then they're just going through each one and really humanizing each and every one. And to me that makes the characters more relatable and it makes you feel for them.
So you're saying story driven, you're saying psychological, you're saying scary, and I'm hearing Dead Space. But having played, I've only played the first 2 Gears of War, I think, and what turned me off about them is something that you also mentioned, which is that it's just so cover based, and it's just that's what the game is. It is one mechanic over and over again, and has that changed? I mean, I don't want to take any wind out of the sails of the game, but that's just a question that I have as someone who may at some point play it.
In terms of the gunplay is still very much cover-based. I will say, though, they've made it a lot easier. There's a lot more weapons available, so, like, you're not using a Lancer necessarily the entire time. And granted, they always made different weapons available in the other games, but I feel like you have a little bit more power to choose. They've given you a wider variety of guns to grapple with, and that can really impact the way that you're playing the game. I'll also say that there's not as much emphasis, it feels like, on the shooting and battle itself. I would say the story actually is taking the front seat here, whereas I feel like in previous games it was all about the gunplay and the shooting. And like obviously that's still an important part. They've made sure it's like nailed down and feels really good if you like the cover shooter, but that's definitely not like the main focus for me.
But realistically, in a shooting game, getting into cover should be kind of the primary focus, right? If you're able to go out into a field and just spray some fire and just progress through the story, that game's not done well.
You know what, though? I'm going to disagree with you there, because I think if I wanted a realistic war scenario where I'm going to just turn into Foxhole Illeagle and just, stay behind a wall the whole time, I'd join the army. I'm not playing shooting games for that reason. I'm playing shooting games, occasionally to run and gun and to have some fun with it. And I'm not saying Gears wasn't fun. I'm just saying that it punishes you very heavily if you aren't willing to like sit behind one little wall for 20 minutes while you take pot shots at somebody.
I mean, you still take heavy damage if you're not in cover, but they kind of, I wouldn't say they got around it, but they've made it a very squad-based game, and it always kind of was in the past, but they've added a new robot in your squad, and that robot can provide you shield. So like if you are exposed and out in the middle of nowhere, your robot can come and give you a temporary shield boost.
Right.
The robot actually can help heal you. So like if you do get downed during a fight, it's not like the end of the world. Even if your squad mate is off in the middle of nowhere or something, or is an AI who can't figure out what to do, the robot usually comes over and heals you. They've also, though, like even the maps I feel like have gotten a little bit less direct. I've noticed that in previous Gears, like you have to basically just sit behind a wall and shoot forward, whereas there have been, in at least some of the maps that we've played so far, because they're a little bit more open, there's like avenues where you can flank enemies, so kind of change things up that way. They've combated that a little bit, but overall, I mean, it's still a cover shooter at heart.
And like, and I'm not saying I want them to, forsake, what they're known for, but it sounds like they've made it at least slightly less punishing, which is a step in the right direction, if you ask me.
Yeah, like there's still difficult areas, but like there's some bosses that are pretty rough, and we've died a few times, but like it's not like you're struggling for 20 minutes sitting behind one wall because you can't do anything.
Right. Well, it sounds super, super cool.
I would say this is probably one of my favorite games that I've played this year, and I'm not even done yet, and I've only heard it gets better. So
you heard it here first, folks. Early Game of the Year candidate for Techtic and Nerdbomber. Before we get to our quiz, because we are hitting that time of the show, unfortunately, I would be remiss if I didn't give a brief Fantasy Movie League update. Congratulations to Spitfire this week, coming in first, potentially their first win, although I don't know, I'm not really keeping track of that. 84.5 million for Spitfire. Second place, Mecha Yoda, who had a very similar Cineplex. Looks like Ad Astra was the movie to bank on this week, which, spoiler alert, I did not do. Hackett's Tech at number 3, also at 83 million. Then we hop down to number 4, and we have our very own Techtic. 70, just about 79 million. Nerdbomber at 5 with 72.3, and I am in 6 with 70. Our good friend Ben at 68, actually closer to 69. Devin Reed,
nice,
at 66. Yeah, nice. Hipster Pop Geek at 65, and Secret Asian Man at 55. We had everyone fill out a Cineplex this week, which is sadly a bit of a rarity. I got back on the horse this week myself. Overall, Nerdbomber is still in a comfortable first place with 462 million. Devin Reed behind at 436. Techtic breathing down Devin Reed's neck at 434. Mecha Yoda at 427. Spitfire at 415. Hipster Pop Geek at 410. And then a big jump down to 382, which is where I am sitting. Ben at 368, Hackett's Tech at 366, and Secret Asian Man quite a ways down at 192. So if you want to get in on this fun, you can go ahead and head over to fantasymovieleague.com and look up the Online Warriors podcast, which is a private league, but the password is podcast, all lowercase. We'd love to have you join us, if only for a few weeks here as we get ready to close out our 3rd season, at this point, Nerdbomber has a comfortable lead in. So come on in and knock her down a few pegs. That's something that I would enjoy. Let's game it up. What do you say?
All right, so this week I have been chosen as the honorary host because last week our guest Ben actually won. So the topic this week is sports mascots. And I'm doing something a little bit different this week. Instead of the usual numbers-based quiz, I'm going to go with fact or crap. And
shaking it up. I like it.
So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you off a list of mascot names. And I need you to tell me if it is real or if it is fake. And then based on your responses, then I will tally it up and I will let you know who is the winner. All right, so do you guys...
so we're not going to know until the end? Or are you going to tell us after each question?
I mean, what would you guys prefer on this one? Do you want to know right away or do you want to wait till the end?
Right away after each one.
Okay. I can do that.
I suppose that makes it more interactive with the audience. Yeah, I'm ready. I'll win.
Okay, so the first one that I'm going to give you is King Cake Baby. Fact or crap?
As in, is that a real mascot?
Yes.
Oh, that's a fact. That's real.
Yeah, I'm with that. I say fact.
Okay, that one is in fact a fact. That is a real mascot. That one comes out of New Orleans. It is the mascot of the New Orleans Pelicans around Mardi Gras. If you're not familiar with the tradition around Mardi Gras, you make a cake and then there's a little plastic baby in the cake. So apparently they've made this really creepy looking baby mascot.
I've actually heard of this before.
Yeah, he's like the thing of nightmares. So yeah, that is a real mascot. Okay.
King Cake Baby was also my my nickname in high school. But that's besides the point.
Did you eat a lot of cake or
No, it's just a baby.
Fair enough.
I was a royal baby. Anyways, let's keep going.
Okay, so the next one is Curly the Newt. Is that a real mascot or not?
I'm going to go fake.
You know what? I was thinking about going... I mean, my gut says it's crap, but I'm going to go fact because... let's shake it up. Let's not just say the same thing over and over again. I'm going to say fact.
All right, so Techtic actually got this one right. I made that one up.
Dang.
No, Newt is curly.
That seemed like something that Nerdbomber would make up.
All right, so my next one is Humble the Bumblebee. Is that a real one or a fake one?
That one is crap.
Techtic, what do you think over there?
I also say it's crap again.
Okay, you both got that one right. I made that one up too. I thought that was a pretty decent one. Apparently they're not very realistic.
Curly the Newt was more believable than Humble the Bumblebee. I think this is good. This is like a metagame. We can evaluate your fake answers as well.
Okay, so I'm going to follow that up then. What do you think of the mysterious fish?
Oh, that one is real. True.
What do you think, Techtic?
I want to have fun and like go against you, but like
it's okay.
That's real because Nerdbomber inherently tries to rhyme because that's what a fake thing would do.
Curly the Newt wasn't a rhyme.
It's like a Dr. Seuss rhyme.
It's basically a rhyme.
All right. So the mysterious fish was indeed a real mascot. It is from the Japanese baseball team. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Chiba Lot Mariners. And it is a scary looking anglerfish who spits out the skeletons of dead fish throughout the game.
Wow.
So,
amazing.
Yeah. That's
menacing.
Pretty creepy. All right. So I'm going to do the next one then. Sammy the Banana Slug.
That one is crap.
That one's also real.
All right, so Techtic gets this one. That is a real one from the University of California at Santa Cruz. I don't know the significance behind this one, but I thought it was kind of off the beaten path, so I thought it might throw you off.
You'd never come up with a banana slug.
See,
maybe just Sammy the Slug. She would do Sammy the Slug, not Sammy the Banana Slug.
I thought she was flying close to the sun. I thought she like looked up interesting animals and came up with banana slugs. So I'm losing by 2. So
yeah,
it's not looking great.
Right now it's 5-3. I've got 2 more on my list, so you could tie it if you get both of these right.
Oh,
and Techtic doesn't get any of them right.
Right.
Okay, so I have the bubbly walrus.
That's crap.
I'm also but I have so see I want to say that's crap, but if I do, then I lose no matter what. So I'm going to say it's real.
All right, Techtic gets this one and he wins.
Dang it,
that one was total crap.
Bubbly the wall. I mean, I knew, but I couldn't. Dang it. All right, that's fine. Let's do the last one just for fun.
All right, so fighting okra. What do you think about that one?
That's real. That one is real.
All right, yeah, that one's real from Delta State University.
You'd never come up with an okra.
DSU.
So, fun fact that I used to work in produce in a grocery store, so I might have come up with okra. You don't know.
Yeah,
I could animal,
see
though.
Okra's not an animal.
Exactly.
Neither was king cake baby.
Right, but that was real.
Oh yeah, that's right. I only did animals.
You wouldn't be like,
oh, that's my cow.
Let me do a vegetable as a mascot.
Yeah, but okay, I guess you're right. Man, you did you get a perfect score, Techtic?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Unbelievable. That might be our first clean sweep of
Well, this was basically no, if Nerdbomber's lying.
Yeah. But plus you're right next to her. You can probably like read her expressions and like her body language. I don't have that privilege. So that is the reason that I lost. It wasn't the fact that I was bad at the game. I was at a competitive disadvantage.
I do like the format, though. I think it could be fun if we had people who could like write better questions and obviously didn't have a tell like animals that kind of rhyme.
So,
you know what? I totally agree with that.
Do you know what the next quiz should be? See if Nerdbomber can tell if Techtic's lying.
Yeah, and you know what? We're going to do that next week.
Ooh, we should call this the Lie Detector instead of Fact or Crap. I like that instead.
Yeah, plus isn't fact or crap like couldn't we get in trouble like trademark? That's like a thing.
Probably.
You get in trouble.
Don't make us sad and trademark us or whatever. Fact or crap owner.
Not a sponsor. Copyright infringement I think would be what would happen to us. We go to prison. So yeah, next week we'll see how well Nerdbomber can detect Techtic's lies. And I guess we'll see how well I can detect them too, but again, we'll see what happens. In the meantime, and until then, we thank you all for joining us here on this week of the Online Warriors podcast. We would really appreciate it if you would head on over to iTunes and leave us a good review, or tell your friends, or just to hit us up on the social medias. You know, we're always looking to interact. So
yeah, and don't forget that contest is still running on Twitter, where we're giving away our $10 Amazon gift card for hitting 1,000 followers on Twitter. If you guys aren't aware of it already, if you go to our Twitter over at OnlineWarriors1, we have a pinned tweet. If you are following us and you retweet that, you will be eligible to be one of the potential winners of the $10 gift card. And I think winners will be drawn, I believe that was October 2nd. So don't wait too long.
So yeah, go on over and check that out, and tell your friends, tell your parents, I don't know. I'd like to get more parents listening to this podcast. I don't know. I don't know what our demographic is necessarily, but tell your parents.
I feel like we're family friendly-ish.
Yeah. Tell your parents, or if you're a parent yourself, tell your kids.
Tell them when you're sitting watching Ozark with them.
I mean, we're not going to be talking about clapping cheeks every episode. So, show it to your 5-year-old, show it to your 6-year-old. And when they ask what clapping cheeks means, just make something up. Come on. You can handle it.
Just like that whole thing about how you would get pulled over and get a ticket if you had your light on in the car. That was all just BS.
I can't believe that still. I mean, I fell for that so hard. I think all of us did. Yeah, don't be that parent. I mean, lie to them about this, but not about the car thing. That's just cruel. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right. See you next week, everyone.